Hello, everyone. Welcome to the School of Small Business. This is where we provide tips, strategies, resources, and techniques to aspiring business owners, existing businesses, and entrepreneurs that can help them navigate their way along the small business journey and achieve what they really are in this for, is to achieve success. I am Salome Chung, and I invite you to share what we do here with your network, with your friends, your family, anyone in your world you think would gain value from tuning into this broadcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. I would also appreciate your comments, because that is how we know how we can add more value to you and be able to serve you better. Today, I'm going to be focusing on leadership as it relates to the small business realm. Whether you're just starting out in business, you're an aspiring business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you're leaving employee, becoming an employer, or you are already in business and you're looking to learn how you can make your business even better, how you can relate to those around you, to those who are on your team, to just the people you interact with on a daily basis. Today, my guest is Chris Templeton, and Chris is going to help me navigate this topic. We're going to have a conversation as to how we can help everyone in the small business realm and business in general, how to be better leaders. Chris is an authority on leadership and management. And he has come up with this intriguing concept that I like a lot, called The Stories We Tell. Welcome, Chris. My first comment to you would be, Chris, how does your concept help everyone in the business realm become better leaders? How do they identify those stories they're telling themselves? How do they develop better stories and use these stories to help them be better leaders?
Good morning. It's a great question, and I appreciate you having me on. The answer is self-awareness. Like, when it comes right down to it, if I'm not aware of how I'm coloring my world, how I'm as a business owner, and we're very susceptible to this, especially as entrepreneurs, how I may be saying, well, that's the problem and that's the problem, and if she'd just do that, and I don't know what my client was thinking about this. All of those things are coloring our world. And so really, in my mind, the first place to understand is, what am I doing to create situations that are worse than they need to be, and how to unstick myself from being in a problem orientation and move to a solution orientation. And that's the whole point of the three questions that I've come up with in this resulting model, which is, what's the story I'm telling? Is it serving me in this moment? And is there a more authentic story that I can tell? And when you start to practice those things, and that's the other half of the answer, is this is about practice, right? We are hopefully going to be practicing for the rest of our lives. And that's certainly my encouragement to anybody who, especially an entrepreneur, is in business. You've got to give yourself the room for this to be practice, and not to have it be this cell that I put myself in, where I think everybody else is the problem.
Yeah.
How's that for a start?
That is a great answer, because as an entrepreneur, speaking for myself, when you make that transition from being an employee to being an employer, it's challenging to move from employer to leader, because a boss is not the same thing as a leader. A boss, tells you what to do. tells everyone what to do, make sure they do it, and make sure they do it to the person who's requesting it, make sure they're doing it to their specifications. A leader, on the other hand, is someone who's going to tell you the how, the why, the what, and is able to, um, in their own, um, in the way they conduct their business every day, the leader is embodying how they want the employee to complete whatever task. It's about living by example. I know it sounds simple, but it's really what a leader does. Is if I'm not willing to go clean up the trash, how do I then expect the person who works for me to feel good about doing that? So, as someone who's making that transition, what would you say they should be doing in those first weeks and months of making the transition to working for themselves, growing a team? What should they be? What stories should they be telling the people they're going to be directing?
I think the number one story that a new entrepreneur needs to be focused on is the story that they're telling that serves everybody, that serves themselves, that serves the people they're working with, whether it's employees, contractors, vendors, right? The people that you're bringing to the table on behalf of a client. And also that this is going the way that the client wants it to go. And that is so easily said and so easy to get derailed by, isn't it? And the thing that you point out, which I think is really important, is when you move from being an employee to the owner of your own business, and then you start enrolling people, vendors, contractors, employees, even if you had a good boss at a corporate position, as an example, you have to understand that this is a whole nother level above that, not in a bad way, but you are now the person that's going to hear all the problems. You're going to hear everybody's take on what's going on. You're going to hear how vendors worked with clients, or employees or contractors worked with clients, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And your job, as you're modeling the behavior that you want your employees to have, is to stay centered and grounded, right? Is to really be able to say, even when the stuff hits the fan, your job is to stay centered and grounded and work through those things from not from a problem orientation, but from a solution orientation. And as somebody who's done this, I want you to know it's super hard.
Yeah.
If you do it right, it's super rewarding and wonderful. And part of the deal is, that is just going to be what you've signed up to for, whether you recognize it or not. But when you move from a place of problem orientation, where you're just telling stories that aren't serving you, to a place that the stories that you're telling are serving you, then you have this ability to really make a difference in how the people that you're working with and that are working with you, you're driving in a large part their behavior by your example. And so, it's taking that breath, or taking that extra day. I had a situation where I had a vendor tell my client in an email, I distinctly told you not to do something. I mean, right? Most people would just be yelling and screaming. And you, as a business owner, if you do that, it doesn't serve you. So what did I do? I called my client immediately. I said, I'm going to have this person stop talking to you. I'm going to find out what's going on. And the client was not happy. They were not happy, nor should they have been.
Mhm.
And then I said to the vendor, you're not to talk to the client. I need some time to kind of process this, and then I'll come back to you and figure out what the next steps are. And so that brings up a couple of other things that I think are really important to just kind of talk about, which is one of my favorite quotes is from a guy, came from Stephen Covey, Habits of Highly Effective People, and he read it in a book on Hawaii in 1969 and doesn't know what it is. But the quote is, between stimulus and response, there's a space.
Mhm.
And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And take that a step further for a business owner. In your response, because you're able to choose your response if you with practice, you have the ability to create growth and freedom for yourself, for the vendors that you're working with, and for the clients that you're working with. This is big stuff. Like if you think you're just going to run in there and I'm going to show everybody what's to do and get in, get out, and it's all going to be great, it's way bigger than that. So when you start to think about, or you take the example of me and this vendor of mine, you know, I had had enough practice by the time that had happened where I knew that I was not going to respond in kind, that I wasn't going to yell and scream. So I, I didn't respond by default. When there's no room between stimulus and response, oh baby, we're headed for a bad
All this
time.
stuff can happen in between. Yeah.
And it doesn't serve anybody. So, you know, focusing, that's the second thing I want people to really understand is your goal as a business owner is to create lots of space between stimulus and response, because that's where all the good answers are. When we're doing it by default, 9 out of 10 times, it's not going to serve us, is it?
Absolutely not. And it leaves a lot of room for bad things to happen. And that's what you do not want as a business owner. Um, Now, Chris, for those business owners who are in business, um, comes a time when they get stuck. They're not going backwards, they're not going forwards, they can't figure out what the issue is. Could it be that they're at a point where the story that they've already told themselves, they've already fulfilled that story, and that is why they can't move forward? Could it be that in your experience, or is it something else?
I think it depends on the situation. I think for most people, one of the things that's kind of frustrating about goals, not that I don't think you should have them because I do, but we have a tendency when we reach a goal to go, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Right? And so maybe for most people, that's about, okay, am I updating my goals? Am I changing them to fit today's situation versus last week, last year, as whatever the case may be? So that's my sense of it at one level. I do think that people really get stuck in their own heads about certain things, whether it be how do you deliver client service, how do you deal with sales, generating new business. I mean, there's all kinds of places where I think people get stuck, although I think they have a tendency to be there right out the gate. Although we may, just kind of like when we're newly in love, we'll
Yeah.
do things without any resistance, and then that resistance gradually creeps back in. And I imagine there's an aspect of that. I don't think there's a blanket statement that you can make about it, though.
Now, Chris, your excuse me, your this intriguing concept you've developed. Would you say, you know, it involves the story where you're talking about your little me, then you've got to the authentic me, then the enlightened me. The enlightened me is, of course, the ultimate. Would you say that when if you're in business, is that a process of growth, or do you think someone embarking in business should have already reached a certain state of enlightenment?
I don't think well, let me just take a couple of steps back and then I'll answer that.
Okay.
First of all, let me just throw up real quick what you're referring to, which is this model right here. The, question one is, what's the story I'm telling? Question two is, is the story that I'm telling serving me in this moment, in this moment, in this moment? And so what we say is if a story isn't serving me, if the answer is no, then it goes above the line and what I call little me land and or lesser me. It's where I behave in problem orientation. I'm fear based. All of these things. That is little me. And so where we see a lot of issues in regards to this are when we usually the reason we decided to go to work on our own because we've had people that have been our managers that live in little me land that micromanage that don't have a provide a sense of ownership or appreciation in the project, that sort of thing. So that's if my story doesn't serve me in the moment, then the deal on that is it's above the line and again in what I call little me land. If this story does serve you, then you're being authentic to yourself. You're curious about what's going on. You want to understand more about why your vendor did what you did, what he did, how to help the client to be so that you can be more effective on their behalf. It's very much a solution orientation. And also that I think is really interesting is above the line, we talk about it being the core emotion is fear. Below the line, one of the core emotions is curiosity. Like, think about how many people have no space between stimulus and response that are your bosses, and they think they know exactly what's going on, and they make a decision. You've, as an employee, have had no input, right? And everybody is now stuck above the line in little me land and nobody's happy. When I'm below that line in authentic me land, I'm curious. I'm solution oriented. I want to figure this out. I want to grow from it, right? I want to help create an environment where my employees and my vendors and the people that I work with feel like, oh my God, this is a great place to be. I really like working with this person because they're honest. They don't this isn't positive thinking. It's not like they're always nice because they hold me accountable. They tell me some of the things that I need to change to be better. And the way they do it is a way that I can hear it. It's not confrontational. It's not talking down. That's life in little me land. The next question that you brought up, going back to the question that you brought up, is this idea of being enlightened. And so, what I look at enlightenment as being is not a place where we stay. In my mind, enlightenment is we come in and out of it all and typically do it throughout the day. We go to these little places where I hold my wife's hand, and it's just lovely. Or I see a baby, or I see somebody on America's Got Talent get the golden, shower of confetti because they did such a great job. Like all of those little things are really heartwarming, lovely, but we don't stay down there. And I think it's one of the things that's really mixed up in kind of new age thinking is this idea of, oh, I'm going to do all the right things and I'm going to be enlightened. No, you're going to have moments of that. One of the things that happens in an enlightened area is flow. So that's when I lock into a project and I spend 2 hours and it feels like 15 minutes and I got so much done and it was amazing, right? That's to me what enlightenment is. It's we drop in and out of it. So I do not think for 1 second that any business owner going in should feel they need to be in that place. With that said, when I spend more time on authentic stories, I also have a tendency to recognize when I'm in those places. Oh man, you should see, I just had the best call and I connected with that client. And then I had a great call with a vendor and I connected with them. We really are super clear. Like that is little bits of enlightenment. It's where we are lighter and where things just have a tendency to fall together. The key is, final point on that, is the more time I spend in authentic me land, understanding I'm always going to go up to little me land, there's going to be things that drag me up there, and that's okay. The more time I spend in that authentic place, the more likely I'm going to go down into that enlightened place. And sorry, last thing. It's like sleep. You can't make yourself sleep and you can't make yourself be in an enlightened state. But what you can do is create the conditions
Mhm.
by telling authentic stories, where I'm more likely to land down there for these brief periods of time. And then, oh man, life gets so much
Much
better.
better. Yes, absolutely. Well, Chris, it's been, I mean, I had not heard this concept before. So I thank you so much for bringing it to the fore. I would appreciate your sharing with the people where they can find you,
Sure.
and how they can connect with you, whether it's on social media, your website, etc.
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one is I would love it if people would go to YouTube, do a search for Oh, the Stories I'm Telling. And one of the first, if not the first, result will be an orange thought bubble, and written in burnt orange will be Oh, the Stories We Tell. Click on that. And please do me a favor and subscribe to that. I'm trying to get to, I think it's 100 subscribers, and then I can give it a youtube.com/, Oh, the Stories We Tell, which we're not there yet. So if you would, your audience would go ahead and just subscribe to that. I'd really appreciate it. And then there's the Honesty Project playlist where you can see probably 7 or 8 hours of me working with a very good friend through some of the issues she's had with personal relationships in business, that sort of thing. Annoying coworkers is one of the topics, all of that. And we apply the model to it. And it's just really, really good. So that's first place. Second place is ohthestorieswetell.com, Oh, the Stories We Tell. And you can find out more about the model. It's right on the homepage. And there's some articles, that sort of thing. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Oh, the Stories We Tell.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much, Chris, for being here. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot as a small business owner. I'm really going to go back and kind of, I know we're going to spend a lot of our days in little me category, but
Yeah.
if you can achieve that level of flow, where you're really enlightened and things just flow and it is easy and effortless, that's the goal. And
Oh,
I
absolutely.
thank you so much. And thank you to my audience for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Please remember to share it with everyone in your world. Please, if you're listening on YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel. And I hope to see you again next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.